Hi, this is David from Heart of the Lion School of Martial Arts. Um, what has occurred to me is that uh, you kind of need to know how to be a good student. Because here's the thing, if you ever want to be a good teacher, you need to know how to be a good student. And a good student, well, uh, first day of class, you walk in, you introduce yourself to your instructor or instructors, depending on whether you're going to look for different schools, and you let them know, hey, I'm interested in learning martial arts, and I'm out and about looking at different schools to see which school I like and which one I'm going to participate in. Well, I did that. I started out as a young man, as a youngster, really. My mom came home with a man that was from China, and he asked me one day, "Would you like to learn some kung fu?" And I said, "Yeah, of course I do. I would love to because in those days I was watching the Bruce Lee movies and all the kung fu movies and the karate movies that were out at the time." Um, and this was in the late 60s. So I started my martial arts at about 6 years old, and I started learning kung fu. Now, the man that I started to learn from, well, I called him, what was his name? Ricky. Yeah, his name was Ricky. Or Rick. Um, um, and Ricky um, told me that he was going to teach me a style of Kung Fu that was what he considered to be a very hard style, not quite as uh, soft as what other styles are, but he said he will also teach me the soft style of what he knows of the martial arts of the kung fu ways. And uh, so I studied with this man pretty much every summer. So during the regular winter time, the rest of the year time, I did study with him as often as I could. But during the summers, between age 6 and 12, I really concentrated on learning the kung fu, and I learned not to question my instructor during that time period of my life. And I mean, as a young person, you know, you don't need to know when you're really, really young that you why this is and why that is, because uh, you haven't grown up quite enough up here yet. So there's a stage that you have to go through. And my instructor, when I was about 12 years old, he left. He went back to China. And many, many, I don't remember how long, but months later, I received a scroll certificate. And I had to go and have it translated. And um, it gave me the rank of seafood, and that was cool. It was just like I didn't know what that was, Um, and I guess he wanted me to go on and teach what I knew to others, which is great. I mean, um, but I felt that I wasn't ready to just start teaching that. I mean, I knew a lot of uh, the kung fu techniques, and I knew a lot of the different weapons that he taught me, and so on and so forth. But I didn't feel that I was ready. I wasn't ready. You know, I was only 12 years old, and I wasn't ready, and I wanted to learn more. So I went on and I found other schools, and I walked in and I said, "Hi, this is who I am, and I'm looking for a school." And at first, I found that just sitting down and watching classes, I'd sit down and watch classes, and I would watch how the instructor interacts with his students. And there was a few martial art places that I joined, and I spent a year or so here and a year or so there, and I learned what I wanted to learn, and life happens. Um, and finally, here I was, 15 and a half years old, about. I had crushed my foot between my motorcycle and another car, and I was hobbling down the road on a pair of crutches to the martial arts, not the martial arts school, but to the 7-Eleven. And I was thirsty. I was a kid, a 15-year-old kid, and wanted something to eat, wanted something to drink, blah, blah, blah. And I went down the alley, the back alleyway to get to the 7-Eleven over there on Broadway. And I went to the 7-Eleven, and here I was hobbling back. And I heard this great noise. Crash! And in that big noise, I stuck my head in the door, and there was this small man he was breaking. He was breaking river bottom stones that were sitting on top of a piece of metal, a piece of metal on the floor. There was a river bottom stone, another stone on top of that, and he was breaking the stone with this part of his hand, right here. Rich. And I just, was watching him do it, and he'd break this stone, and I'm like, wow, I want to learn how to do that. And I must have been just loud enough for him to pop his head up and say, "Oh, there's somebody at the door." And he doesn't talk like that, I'm sorry. But he introduced himself as Master David Shanine, and he was opening this new school on Broadway in Chula Vista, and he interrupted my walk, or I interrupted his thing. Anyway, so we got to talking, and I really liked this guy. He was very humble, very. If you were to see him in regular day-to-day clothing and not his karate gi, you would think this man couldn't hurt a fly, and that's just the way he was. He was very outspoken, He was very humble. He was uh, very confident. That's the biggest thing I must say. This is that he was very, very confident of himself and his abilities. That you could see that when this man walked into a room, he was like, whoa, don't mess with him. Or like with me, I was like, wow, he's a very interesting person. I'm gonna go talk to him. Um, I learned most, or should I say more, martial arts from this man than any of my previous experiences all put together. It's like he knew the whole gambit, everything that I needed to know. And that's just it. It was something that I needed to know. Okay? I had questions that didn't even have to do with martial arts. And he would tell me his philosophy, his way of thinking, or the answer to my question. And as a student, he said, if you have a question, ask. Ask. I will give you the keys. And he said the keys, and I was slightly confused. I will give you the keys. And then I go, what do you mean by that? He said, I will give you all the keys you need. It's up to you to answer the door or open the lock and open the door. And I'm like, okay, I get it. I get it. You're giving me all the techniques that I need. It's up to me to put those techniques together for an outcome to be either potentially better for me, or if I fail to put the combinations together, the outcome that's not going to be good for me. Okay? So when I'm in his class and I'm learning how to spar, I personally, I'd love to spar people that were better than I was. You know, it's like when I was a green belt, I would make sure that I was sparring the blue and the red belts. And when I became a blue belt, I was making sure I was sparring the red belts and the black belts. And when I became a black belt, I made sure I was sparring the second and third degree black belts. And when I became a third degree black belt, I was making sure I was sparring the fourth and fifth degree black belts, and so on. So you want to better yourself. And I mean better yourself as in always challenging someone that's better than you are, to get to a point where it makes you better. Okay? I was also that type of person that once I got into something, I got into it wholeheartedly. And that is a way to be. As a good student, you want to put all of yourself, and I do mean yourself, into what you're doing, what you're going to do, what you're trying to do for yourself. And there were times in my life where I couldn't afford to go to the martial art classes, and I would talk to my instructor, and my instructor would say, I don't care. You pay me a little bit, I still teach you. Because he really wasn't into it for the money. I mean, yes, he made a good living on teaching martial arts, and he still makes a fairly good living on teaching martial arts. Uh, as a good student, I must also thank you to this man. Um, Thank you very much, Master David Shanine, to uh, teach me all that you have done, to teach me all the techniques that I know. I mean, he wasn't just straight line taekwondo. He taught us boxing. He taught us kung fu. He taught us grappling. He taught us judo, jiu-jitsu, a little bit of everything, and he combined it into his martial art. That's why I think that when you look at the front of his building, it doesn't say uh, International Taekwondo School. It says International School of Martial Arts. And I'm like, cool. Because that's the kind of way to be. I mean, don't just say, okay, I'm only going to learn this and be stuck over here in a corner where, okay, if somebody comes at me at this because this is the only thing I learned, I'm good. But if somebody else comes at me from over here doing something else, I'm like, I'm SOL. Because I didn't learn how to combat this. Okay? And the person over here also may be in a situation where this is the only thing he learned. He didn't learn how to combat this down here. Okay? So you got to be a well-rounded martial artist. And I mean that to be a well-rounded martial artist, learn a little bit of everything. I mean, from one instructor, I learned more than any other instructor that I've ever been with, and I've been with several instructors. Then, life happens. I couldn't be with him anymore because my family and I decided to move to Texas, and we moved to Texas, and I opened up a martial arts school here in Texas. There was a big flood. The flood got wiped out the school, and I lost pretty much everything that I could do in the martial arts at that time. And I had decided then, here I am, 38. I think I was about 38 years old when this happened, and I had just said, that's it. I can't do any more martial arts. I'm done. So 20 some odd years goes by, and I get, as you can see, I'm not a small person anymore. I'm skinny, had gone completely, I blew up. I mean, I'm large, and I am out of shape, and so about a year and a half ago, maybe even about a year and a half before this pandemic started, I had decided to go back into the martial arts. I was tired of not being able to pick something up off the floor because I could hardly bend over anymore. I had 20 years. Hey, that's a lot of not doing what you're supposed to do, and then all of a sudden it hits you and says, hey, I got to stop what I'm doing because it ain't working. I got to get back into doing something where I can get back into shape. Well, For the year and a half or so before this pandemic hit, I found a martial arts school, and there was an instructor that I really liked, and I decided that I'm going to go back and start learning again. Because eventually I want to get to the point where I feel good enough about myself to start teaching. Because the main reason why I got into this school is because they said yes. And come back, start your martial art training all over again. So it was nice that I didn't have to go all the way back to white belt. This instructor said, okay, once a black belt, always a black belt, especially in their organization. And their organization is the ATA. So, fortunately, I had a certificate from the ATA, and I showed it to him, and great, fantastic. Once a black belt, always a black belt. So, I was able to go back to classes, and I started seeing improvement. Um, uh, it's not a great improvement to some people, but it's an improvement to me. My belly was going down. My flexibility was getting better. The laps around the room were progressively getting faster. I started out barely being able to get around, and I get passed up by other students. But that doesn't bother me. I mean, I do what I can do as I can. And a few of those classes, my wife, Debbie, she was going to classes with me. And she would come as often as she could to class because her health is nowhere near well, it's better now than it was, but she was getting better. But anyway, so as a good student, even in the new classes that I was saying, is do what your instructor asks without question during the class. If you have questions and need some answers about something, wait until the end of class. Then ask your instructor, okay, why did you do this, and why are you doing that, and why are you not doing this, and why are you not doing this, and why am I having to do this, and the other students are doing, whatever your question happens to be, wait until the end of class. Wait until there's a break for you to ask questions. And then, if your instructor is in the middle of teaching and he says, does anybody have any questions? Ask your question. Don't be shy. Don't be the one that just says, okay. It's just that, or if there's an answer to a question that one of your other students has brought up, and you have an answer, you can go, Sensei, can I answer this question? And your sensei, if he knows you quite well, he'll probably say, yeah, answer the question. And I did that all the time. I mean, even after classes, there were times when I would take a student aside and go, here's something I think that you can work on that will help you. And I asked, at first, the instructor, no, 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 don't do that. And then after he got to know me, he said, anytime you want to help a student, do it. Do it. If you can help a student in some way where you see that a student needs a little help or needs a little extra something, do it. And so I had students after a while coming to me and saying, I like the way you did that. Could you show it to me? Could you help me with this? And I did. I mean, even today, if somebody comes up and says, hi, I need help. Can you help me with something to do with the martial arts? Or whatever, I would drop what I was doing and help them. That's just the way I am. It's the teacher in me. It really is. It is the teacher in me. And I've had people who have seen a couple of my videos where I'm breaking boards and stuff like that. And they go, wow, I didn't know you could do that. I had no idea that you were a black belt. I had no idea that you could do these things. Yeah. I mean, when I present myself to anybody who I meet in the street or whatever, I'm usually pretty confident, and I talk to people, and I even pick on people sometimes, but in a funny way. I don't do it to be mean. I may do it to be off, make them stop and think. It's like when somebody says, hi, I say, no, I'm not, but thanks anyway. And they'll stop and look at me, and I just smile. And my wife's gotten to the point where she's just ignore him. He does that all the time. I'll just say little things like, I'm not going to get into it anyway. But I don't present myself in normal everyday life as a bully or somebody who's going to, just be mean because I can. So you should also be very, I'm trying to find the word, humble. So it says, why be humble? I mean, to be humble and to be that you can be two totally separate things. It's like when my instructor, no matter who he is, asks me to do something, I will do it without question. Because that's what you should do. You should do what your instructor asks you to do, because he's your instructor. I mean, if your father asks you to do something, you should do it without question. Same thing with mom. If your mom asks you to do something, you should do it without question. Because that's where you should put them in the hierarchy of your life. And if my instructor says, get up, you're going to break this board, I'm going to get up and I'm going to break that board. And then he's going to say, okay, that was great. Now I want you to do this technique and break that board. And it may be a technique that I have either just learned or something that he knows I can do, but I've never done that technique before to try to break a board. I mean, kicking a pad and kicking a board are different things. Because you got to put your mind, and I mean, you put your mind in a different perspective. Kicking a pad, oh, that's not hurting me. I can do this all day long because it's a pad. But breaking a board, ooh, now it's a solid thing that if you do something wrong, you could hurt yourself. I mean, so you got to put it in your mind, okay, 1, I'm going to do this. 2, you got to think through it. Here's the surface of the board. You don't want to stop here. You want to stop back here somewhere. Okay, through the board. Boom, through the board. And so it's that mindset you got to put yourself in. Break the board. Don't think surface of the board, think through the board. Okay, boom, you break the board in the technique that the instructor has asked you to do. Then you learn how to do sparring and stuff like that. And you learn that when you're throwing your techniques and stuff, that you start off with everybody wears pads. Okay? Alright. And you hit the guy and they hit you, and you learn how to take a punch, and you also learn how your body's going to react to being hit. But then your instructor says, okay, take off your pads. I want you to do the exact same thing. But this time with self-control, and you don't hurt each other. Huh? How am I supposed to do that? Well, if you've trained to the point where going through every single time when you're aiming at something, you're breaking the boards. When you hit them, you're hitting them with force because you have this big pad on your hand. Boom. Now you've got to train to be able to hit somebody and not do any damage. Okay, why and how should I do that? Well, as a good student, by the time you've reached 2nd and 3rd degree black belt, you should have that kind of control. And if you're in class and you go, okay, no pads. It's like, he knows you've hit them. You've used speed to get there. but you haven't hurt them. I'm using my hand as that's them, their face or something, you know. And they go, okay, you got me. Okay, that's control. So if you're in a situation where you need to not only control yourself, but damage the attacker, you've developed, and this is what I mean, you develop the techniques and the control that you need to have to subdue your attacker to the point where he cannot attack you anymore because he doesn't want to. Okay? But you also want to be at a level of control where you don't let your head go beyond. And you also, which means you need to be able to control your anger response. Okay? Sometimes, when you're first learning, you're learning how to do the board, to break a board. Okay? So the instructor may say, get angry! Break that board! Like you're punching your worst enemy. Boom! You do it. And they'll relax. Huh? I'm mad. I want to break another board. No, relax. You only needed to be angry for this long to accomplish this thing. Now relax. After a while, you develop this. I had to develop a nature of being for myself to be able to control my emotions, because the level of students that you have, whether there be a 6-year-old or a 4-year-old who's learning martial arts, and he's at that point where you feel like you want to pull your hair out with most people, or a teenager who is out of control, or even an adult that's out of control. You need to have control within yourself to be able to control the situation. And these are learned. They're learned so you can be who you need to be. Okay, so being a good student helps you to become a good teacher. So be that good student. Do what you're asked to do. I mean, you can't just go through life and be this type of person all the time. Sometimes you need to be angry. Sometimes you need to be calm. And knowing when to be these things. And you notice I'm doing this like a teeter-totter. Will help you bring balance to yourself. And hopefully brings balance to your life. Well, thank you for watching. Hopefully you've seen this whole thing. This is David Erler. And I'm still going to say, from the Heart of the Lion School of Martial Arts, someday I'm going to reopen my school and I'm going to start teaching again. But until then, I may do these little videos. Um, and whether you want to hear what I have to say or not, it's still all up to you. There's always an off button. Thank you.